Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Nepantla Presents COVID-19 Vaccine Information Session. I appreciate you all being here. My name is Dr. Leila Pazargati, but I am not a medical doctor. I am an English professor who is passionate about vaccines. I'm really excited, though, to welcome our medical faculty and doctors and personnel here today who will be talking about the COVID-19 vaccine and all the information behind it, the kind of the facts, the myths, the truths, and whatnot. Now, just a couple notes about this session. It is 1 hour long. We will feature a Q&A at the end, so get your questions ready. If you feel a little bit shy about your questions, you can use the webinar here to anonymously ask your questions. So you just have to click a box that says anonymous. We are also recording this session for future posterity and hopefully vaccine information getting out there. But for all of you attending, your names will not appear and obviously your images will not because we've set up the webinar on purpose here. So we appreciate you being here. Of course, if questions come up throughout, please write them in the chat and I will keep a mind or keep an eye on it, excuse me. But you can also ask them with the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you hover, it's a little bit different from traditional Zoom, but you can also ask it that way. So really excited to welcome our panelists here today who will be speaking to you about the vaccines before moving on to a moderated Q&A by me. And first up, we've got Dr. Chad Kingsley, who is part of the Southern Nevada Health District's Incident Command System in response to COVID-19. Dr. Kingsley has served as the ICS Operational Director of Disease Containment and Community Liaison. Throughout Dr. Kingsley's 9 years of public health service in Las Vegas, he has provided integrated health education and ongoing community trauma system development. Dr. Duong comes to us from Virginia, and he completed his general surgery residency at the University of Virginia. His ophthalmology, ophthalmology residency at Howard University Hospital, just making sure there, and a fellowship in ophthalmic pathology at the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology, Walter Reed Army Medical Center. He has been teaching Nevada State since 2005 to include Biology 223, 224, Anatomy and Physiology, Biology 414, Endocrinology, Biology 414, Pathology and Pathophysiology of Disease, Biology 440, 448, Mammalian Physiology, and Biology 475, Neurosciences. So a lot of my students out there, biomedical and nursing students, will be taking classes with him. Dr. Kebret Kebede also received his doctorate in medicine from Aristotle University in Greece. He specializes in orthopedics, where he received a specialization in the United Kingdom, and he practiced medicine in Europe and the US. He is an active scholar and he has presented work at the College of Surgeons, the Human Anatomy and Physiology Society, and other international societies. As a biology professor at Nevada State, he has taught several upper and lower division courses, such as microbiology and immunology, and draws heavily on medical experiences to provide students with practical, real-world perspectives on medicine. In that vein, he's also devoted to giving back to the global community, and he actively participates in worldwide medical missions aimed at providing much needed medical care to impoverished and underserved communities in developing countries. And by bringing Nevada State students on these medical missions, he aims to instill this commitment to serving our global community and our future health care providers. And Michael Johnson, Ph.D., RN, PMH, BC, CNE, is an assistant professor and director of clinical partnerships in the School of Nursing at Nevada State. In his role as director of clinical partnerships, he has been a principal leader at Nevada State with COVID efforts. Notably, he helped lead COVID vaccine clinics at UNLV and CSN. Dr. Johnson is a board-certified psychiatric mental health nurse and has an eclectic clinical background in psychiatric and behavioral health, pediatric critical care, pediatric dialysis, and jail nursing. Dr. Johnson's an internationally recognized LGBTQ researcher and has published 20 research articles and textbook chapters and has delivered over 40 conference presentations. So round of applause for our panelists coming together today. Thank you so much. And maybe some of this applause is here at home as we're cheering you on. So I thought, Dr. Duong, we could start with you in providing us an overview of how COVID-19 in some ways functions, how the vaccines work against it, and a little bit of your experience and kind of explaining the what and how in this instance.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Parzagati, for allowing me to be part of this discussion. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So again, thank you for having me here, and hello to everybody out there. I know I can't see your face, but I can sense the excitement in terms of your participation and wanting to ask a lot of questions. So really, my goal today, again, along with Dr. Kingsley, Dr. Kebede, and Dr. Johnson, our role here today is to kind of share with you the scientific data, not only just the scientific data, but what is available out there for us. And what are the means to be vaccinated and what to get vaccinated and things like that. And so with that as the backdrop, right, what do we know about COVID-19? Well, COVID-19 is actually the disease itself, right? The CO stands for corona, which is how the virus looks underneath the microscope, like has a wreath around it. Vi is virus, D is disease, and this was first reported in late 2019. But the actual virus that actually causes this is actually the SARS-CoV-2 virus, all right? And the reason why it's COVID-19 is to distinguish it from some of the other coronavirus-related disease. Now, we know that this disease affects everybody, okay? And the patients present differently. Some have very mild symptoms, maybe just like the loss of smell, maybe loss of sense of taste, to severe illness where they need to be hospitalized, and in many cases that results in the death of that patient. So we know that this virus behaves very differently in each individual, right? We also know that those that are older in age, 65 or older, and those that have pre-existing condition, let's say diabetes, maybe history of lung disease, maybe COPD, whatever, they are more prone to get the severe disease in this case. Now, all of that said, right, we know that one of the ways to minimize the disease spread, one of the ways to prevent severe illness, one of the ways to minimize death and to be hospitalized is to be vaccinated. And that part we do know, right? And I want to share with the audience member something that's really unique. Yesterday, in one of the key journals, the Annals of Internal Medicine, published a study that was done at the Cornell Medical Center, where over 100,000 patients were recruited for this. And what they found was simply this, okay, that those individuals, specifically the two vaccines, the Pfizer and the Moderna, what they found was that it was highly effective in preventing confirmed infection in those that are high risk. Now, that's a very important piece of information right there. But yet, as we all know, that there are a lot of folks out there that have questions about vaccine. Now, again, it could be a range of reasons for that, okay? We have a lot of anti-vaxxer, people don't believe in vaccine, people don't trust the vaccine, they don't trust the government, they don't trust the pharmaceutical company, they don't trust the physician or the nurses. So the question is why did that come about? Or where did that come about, all right? I'm gonna leave this slide up here because among the four of us, we're going to try to hopefully answer all these questions right here for you, okay? And Dr. Kingsley will probably be best to answer probably number 4 and number 5. But we also know that there are other places. So the four of us, we try to answer all 5 questions here for you, all right? But really, let's backtrack real quick, folks. Let's just kind of backtrack real quick and ask about where did the vaccine come from, okay? And so historically in Western medicine, we know that the first vaccine was given by Dr. Edward Jenner. Okay, this is in 1796. And basically what he observed in his clinical practice was that there were folks that were infected with the cowpox. Okay, these were usually milkmaids. They worked with cattle. And when they get infected with cowpox, they develop this pustule. And they're fine. They get the disease and they recover from it. But what he found out was that those individuals that were infected with cowpox actually did not get smallpox. And at that time, smallpox was one of the major causes for death in Europe. So because of that correlation, he's like, you know what, let me try something unique. And he actually did, okay? He basically took a lesion from a young lady, okay, the cowpox lesion, and he inoculated a young boy. But the young boy did not have any cowpox, did not have any smallpox whatsoever. So he basically took an infected lesion from a milkmaid's cowpox and give it to a normal, healthy, young 8-year-old boy, right? Now, the boy did develop mild symptoms for a few days, but he recovered completely without any consequences. So that was an interesting point. Now, that occurred in May of that year. 2 months later, he actually took a lesion from a patient with active smallpox disease and took that lesion and gave it to the same boy that he gave the cowpox. And what he found out was that the young boy did not develop smallpox, and hence the genesis of documented vaccine and the vaccination process. Okay. Now, if you want to know the root word for vaccine, that's actually vacca, and vacca is Latin for cow, and because this is where it all began with the cows, the cowpox, right? And cowpox and the smallpox are from the same family, right? And that's how this all began. Okay, and so vaccines have been proven over the years to be very effective in preventing disease and infection. But again, the question is why? Why is it that there are so many negative aspects? Why are there so many, let's say, well, this is not for me. I don't believe in this. It's a federal government, this conspiracy, all this stuff. Well, let's ask some of the common myths and facts here real quick, folks. All right. The first one is vaccines are not safe. And that's actually not very true. All right. Now, remember, vaccine is a drug, right? And you know that when you get an infection, whether it's bronchitis or pneumonia or any infection, right? You're prescribed a drug, an antibiotic, okay? And you know that when you take a drug, there are gonna be some side effects. A lot of it is very benign in essence. It's not really gonna kill you, right? So again, if you have taken the Z-Pak, azithromycin, you know that one of the side effects is diarrhea, right? But the benefit of that drug, right, outweighs to say that the adverse effect in this case, if you will. Now, it's not safe is really not true, and here's the reason why. In order for a vaccine to be given to the general public, it has to go through at least 5 to 7 years, even 10 years of research and let's say a lot of testing and a lot of in this case, trial with the treatment, right? And so if there are any adverse reactions, it's going to be documented and recorded. And in this case, it may be taken off the shelf. Now, more recently, you heard of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, where there were a few female under the age of 50 that developed blood clot and low platelet count, right? Now, in April 13 of this year, right, the CDC told that they cannot give the vaccine anymore. Now, within the next 10 days, they went back and monitored and evaluated and assessed to see if there were any other adverse effects. And what they found was that the benefit of the vaccine, in essence, really outweighs some of the rare and more the rare complication in this case. So the benefit outweighs the side effect in this case. But we always monitor this all the time, right? So when you receive a vaccine, it's documented. When you call the CDC, when you call your primary care office and you report some of the side effects, that's documented and that's recorded. And so we are always constantly monitoring the side effect of in the vaccine that we give our patient, right? The second myth, vaccine contains harmful ingredients which are dangerous. Well, the top 3 ingredients that have been used in vaccine okay, include mercury, formaldehyde, and aluminum, right? Now, mercury, the mercury came into the forefront of vaccine because of two incidents that occurred. One occurred in 1956 in Minamata, Japan. The other in 1971-72 in Iraq. Now, in Minamata, Japan, what happened was that the population were living there. They were eating fish and shellfish that were contaminated with methyl mercury from the factory upstream, and that lead to mercury poisoning, right? That's methyl mercury. In Iraq in 1970, 71-72, right, because they were receiving import from the United States and in Mexico, mercury, methyl mercury was one of the ingredients used as a ingredient to suppress fungal growth or as an insecticide, if you will, right? And so there were about 6,500 patients that got mercury poisoning. About 460 died from that mercury poisoning. So those two events really brought mercury into the forefront of safety. And what they found out was that mercury was used in vaccine as a preservative. Now, the problem is that the effect from Minamata in Iraq were from methyl mercury, not from the organic ethyl mercury, which is this compound that's used in the vaccine. And so they behave differently. Now, that being said, right, there were many studies done, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, and although they did not find any correlation between mercury and long-term side effects, it was recommended that it is be removed from vaccine. And Dr. Kingsley, correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe that in the United States, mercury is no longer used in any of the vaccine that we give our patients, okay? Just to be on the safe side, if you will, right? When you think about formaldehyde, we think about it, that's more preservative, like preserve organs and tissue. But formaldehyde actually is important in the vaccine process. Now, formaldehyde inhibits the virus from replicating, which is a very important thing. So when you give a patient a vaccine that contains a virus, a live virus, right, they have the potential to replicate and actually cause disease itself. And we don't want that. So formaldehyde inhibits that process, which is a safety issue, but without reducing the effectiveness of the potency of that vaccine. And so it's a very important thing to remember. But here's the funny thing. Formaldehyde is found all around us, okay? But here's another important factor. We produce formaldehyde. Inside of us, we produce formaldehyde, right? When we metabolize our DNA and protein, we produce formaldehyde. So why is that hurting us? Well, because we have the enzyme that actually breaks down formaldehyde, okay? And so that's an interesting thing. Furthermore, the amount of formaldehyde that is used in the vaccine is very minuscule. And in one of the citations, I found that you get more formaldehyde from eating a pear than you get from a vaccine, right? Again, that's something to think about. The third is aluminum. Now, aluminum in this case is used as a way to strengthen and prolong the immune response. So really just to kind of boost the immune response and the vaccine in this case. Now, aluminum, again, is important in terms of vaccine as far as the potency of the vaccine. Now, again, we get aluminum from the water that we drink. We get aluminum from the food that we eat, like cereals and grains and some of the vegetable. Right? Again, what is interesting is this. They have found that if you take a 1-year-old child and monitor that child over the first year of life, what they found was that the amount of aluminum that child receives from the vaccine, okay, and the food that child consumes, whatever how the food that child consumes, the amount of aluminum is so small to what the safety level is set at. So it's way below the safety value. So although these are the ingredients that we often use in vaccine, all right, the level is very, very minuscule, and it does not have any significant effect in terms of long-term complication, right? Probably the biggest one is this one right here. Vaccine causes autism. And we know that is a false statement, all right? In 1998, Dr. Andrew Wakefield published a paper in The Lancet, which is a very renowned, very respectable journal in England, right? And what he said was that there was a link between the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine to autism. Now, the study was very small, okay, which that's the first flaw to begin with, a very small population size in this, all right? But what he said has long-reaching effect, right? We know that autism and the spectrum of autism does carry with a lot of psychosocial implication, right? And so when you make a statement, a blank statement, that MMR is linked to autism development, that's going to really sway a lot of parents from getting their children vaccinated. Now, that's what happened. But here's the problem, right? That study was flawed, was also unethical, to where 10 of the initial researchers for that paper retracted what they had said. But as you all know, that the cat is out of the bag. At this point, you can't pull that back anymore. It's a done deal, all right? So in the United States, right, this became, big news. And so when you have celebrity, when you have folks that are in the limelight that are making blank statement that I'm not going to give my child MMR because it can lead to autism, it does have a profound effect on the general population. And so the population of the what we call the anti-vaxxer have really risen over the last 20 years, all right? But in this case, there are no direct link. And furthermore, there have been many studies done to try to prove this point, and all have shown no correlation. And there was a data study done for about 11 years, 1999 to 2010, well, over 650,000 children, right? Again, it proved that there are no link against MMR vaccine and autism, all right? So again, this is scientific data that have been recorded, all right? For all of the conspiracy therapists, conspiracy of folks out there, all right, the government is tracking you, immunized patient, all right? In terms of technology, that's not really possible, folks, okay? First of all, a viral vaccine can vaccinate up to 10, 15, or 20 individual. You cannot control that. It's just not possible in that respect, okay? Again, increase the risk for autoimmune disease, disease of the respiratory tract, okay, compared to unvaccinated children. That's actually not true, by the way, okay? The way that the vaccine works is basically it teaches your immune system to react to the antigen. The way I share with my students is simply this. Think of a vaccine as a warning sign, okay? It tells your body, hey, listen, I'm gonna give you this code. You need to make this specific antibody, okay? So that when that antigen does bring itself up, that foreign substrate does present itself, you can attack it right away, right? So it's kind of forewarn the system of potential exposure. So your body is already set, is already prepped, is already geared up for any exposure to that foreign substrate and antigen, okay? Vaccination doesn't alter the way the cell works. It doesn't, it really doesn't. And so there's really no evidence that correlate vaccine with these types of diseases we talk about, okay? Vaccine increased the risk for global cancer cases. Again, that's not true. For the simple fact that vaccine actually do not cause cancer. It actually prevents some type of cancer, all right? So we know that cancer, as one of the causes of cancer, is just repeated exposure to a specific trauma or insult. Like, for example, right, exposure to human papillomavirus increase the risk for cervical cancer, okay? Exposure to a bacteria, all right, called Helicobacter pylori, increase the risk for stomach cancer, all right? So the vaccine, what it does is it actually prevents the cancer, okay? And the reason why the increase in cancer is because, one, we're living longer. Two, the different lifestyle that people may lead that increase the risk for, let's say, cancer. And also we are able to diagnose cancer early on. So the numbers seem to be higher in that respect, but vaccine as a whole do not increase the risk for cancer development. Proper hygiene, disease will not spread. Here's an interesting thing, okay? many infections can spread, doesn't matter how clean you are. All right, you can take a shower 3 times a day. You can do a scrub down with chlorhexidine or any alcohol. All right, you're still dirty. All right, the point I'm saying is that it doesn't matter how clean you are. Infection are going to spread because it may not be from touching, it may be from airborne. Okay, and so understand that it's not the case. Okay, and so the problem is this: is that if people are not vaccinated, diseases that have become uncommon, right, such as polio, measles, are now reappearing, right? And that has a much more detrimental effect to the community than before, right? Some folks believe that it is better to be immunized by being infected with that specific disease than to get a vaccine. And again, that line of thinking may be okay. The problem is that there are many different diseases that can lead to death and significant long-term consequences. So for example, mental retardation is linked to Haemophilus influenza, okay? Birth defect to congenital rubella infection, liver cancer to hepatitis B, and death from measles. So again, the vaccine prevents these from happening, or if it does happen, the disease is actually much milder as opposed to a full-blown disease that can lead to the patient's demise. Right? So again, the pros and cons are here for you to read. I don't want to take any much more time from my colleague, but real quick, just to share with all of you about the vaccine itself. Okay, we know that the vaccine prevents diseases and it protects you from the disease. Okay, it works with your immunity and it boosts your immune response. That's the bottom line. Now, again, there are some benefits to vaccine, and I've listed some here for you. Okay, so the COVID-19 vaccine, whether it is the Pfizer, the Moderna, or the Johnson & Johnson, as you can see here, that these are some of the benefit for the COVID-19 vaccine. All right. Now, a couple of things I want to clear up real quick. Okay, when you receive the vaccine, the COVID-19, you do not get COVID-19. Okay, and here's the reason why. Right. As far as vaccine are concerned, all right, the first 4, the live attenuated, inactive, the subunit, and the toxoid, are the 4 most common types of vaccine, all right, today. Right, and you can see which one uses which type of vaccine. Now, the RNA-based vaccine, this is fairly new. All right. Now, again, this is really what I call avant-garde research here in this case. And in this case, it's very unique in this. So you look at this picture right here, right? On the left picture, on the far left, right? You, in this case here, you have a virus vector, okay, capsid, that contains the coronavirus DNA, okay, the spike DNA. That is then given as a vaccine to the patient, okay? And that piece of information is incorporated into the host, meaning you, DNA, right? So when you're exposed to the virus, okay, that DNA is replicated and you produce that mRNA strand, the blueprint, that is read, and then you produce the spike protein that will trigger the immune response. Okay? That's how that works. But look at the mRNA vaccine, folks. Look at the mRNA vaccine. Basically, we already made the blueprint for the spike protein, right? Remember the coronavirus, the corona means that it has a crown or wreath, and that crown because of the spike protein that are found in the envelope of the virus. And so now what we did, we gave the body the blueprint. And so when we give that blueprint, we don't affect the DNA, your host DNA. We don't deal with that DNA at all. So basically, your cell is going to read that strip and produce the spike protein. All right. So in this case, there's no incorporation of viral DNA into the host DNA. And so that makes it actually very unique in that respect. Now, basically what happened is this: the vaccine is packaged in a lipid nanoparticle, okay, the mRNA, that is given intramuscular in your deltoid muscle, your shoulder muscle, right? And the cell uptake that mRNA, and the cell then begins to read that code, and it produces the spike protein. Okay, now the spike protein is the one that's found on the coronavirus. Now, that spike protein is going to be recognized by the immune system, your white blood cell, your lymphocytes in this case, that includes your, your macrophage and things like that. They make the antibody, the immunoglobulin against that spike protein. So now you have in your body this armament, this protection of antibody that can recognize that spike protein. So when you are indeed exposed to the coronavirus, your body say, hey, there's that spike protein. I recognize that. Let me attack it. So before the virus can actually replicate and divide into a large amount of number, you are now able to kill it and really suppress its growth and thereby minimizing the infectious process. Okay. And I think this is the last slide that I have here regarding this. And these are my references if you want to read up on all of these right here. Okay, I'm sorry to kind of speed up at the very end, but I was given a 20-minute leadway. So thank you for being patient with me for this presentation.
I appreciate it. This is really fantastic, and there's some really great questions coming in. So we can do a couple things, answer them as a panel, or also I wanted to move to you, Dr. Kingsley, to talk a little bit about what you're seeing on the ground in the Southern Nevada Health District in terms of Vu's earlier questions about like what barriers make it harder for people to get the vaccine and how can we make it easier to get the vaccine, maybe some good information about it. So we might start there, and then I might intervene and kind of start opening it up to everybody to chime in, especially on some of these questions. So keep your questions rolling in, and you can submit them anonymously, and I will ask them throughout. So no worries about that.
Great. This time, sometimes it helps any information that I go through might answer some questions. So I'll try to speedily go through the information, what we're seeing in our community. A few subjective, a little bit materials as we also how we process information and what we're dealing with, and also the barriers and some of the questions, common questions we see in our community. And so at the time, I'm just going to share my screen and show you basically where you can always find this data. When we began this, a lot of times, there's challenges. Everyone has challenges. You go to, I always say walk, there's the adage, walk a mile in someone's shoes. And I found that, it's that we're all fixers. We want to fix a problem. And, it's easy to look at, well, why didn't they just do this? But if you go work in that position, a lot of times you will speak to that person, whatever position it is, if it's at fast food, if it's in university, they're like, well, you didn't consider this, this, or this, and this, and these are the daily things we have to deal with, and so a lot of times that causes road bumps and little speed bumps as we go. And when we first started this, we didn't have a complete reporting system in place for data. So people suddenly question, oh, they don't have the data out, or they're suppressing it. While I have my epidemiologists are working 18 hours a day trying to get a system up with IT to try to get it coordinated so mass people can see it, so people gravitate that. But all this data is available for you, and you can check it on a daily basis. They try to keep it updated. Whenever there's a delay, when breakthrough cases became a new thing, people were like, oh, well, what's the data on that? Media want to know, and this and that. It took us about 2-3 weeks to get it up again, IT, and get the numbers there and get a process. So there's always a slow thing. So always be a little bit patient with your public health, with your teachers, with everybody. Give it some time, and then that information will come out. But I'd like to show you where you can see that on a daily basis, and then we'll look at the daily numbers in our community. Let me go and share my screen. And, oops, starts you off there in my email, sorry. So we're gonna go ahead and start off. First, I'm gonna show you where you can go. So if you just go to the Southern Nevada Health District website, and if you just go in and do your search, and let me know if you can still, if you can't see my screen changing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if you just go to SNHD, and then click on it, it's gonna open up, and you're gonna find up here COVID-19. And you're going to find a lot of different resources where you can go, facts about it, where you can go get tested, where you can go and get the vaccine. And the side thing for testing, for a plug of it, we're one of the last ones in town that is still free. It's actually ramping back up and again our community, but you can get free testing. But if you click here on data, it's going to take you where data's at. Okay. And this is going to show you here, and you can go and see maps and reports, the weekly city numbers, and even now we have our breakthrough cases. So just to give you an example, a lot of the stuff will be broken down into a 14-week period, sometimes 7 days, but you can go through and you can change it. You can look at cases, you can look at hospitalizations, and, current hospitalizations. You can look at deaths that's going on, and it'll start you from, we have it starting back here before coronavirus, but you can look at and see the numbers here, where they're at, and you can follow the screen along, and you can see what those daily were, where they were at, and the dates. Again, you go through maps, see where it's happening in our city, what zip codes. And then it's being a little slow on me right here, sorry. You can go through and you look at it, you look at these zip codes and what's going on. Even now, this is just for Clark County. You have characteristics, you have testing, the symptomatic risk, you have the school information. So this is broken down into school age of children, where the case is at and what the numbers are there. The places where the exposures are being reported at. I know sometimes people are, why are they so hard on restaurants? Well, when somebody shows up positive, when we contact trace them and find out where they've been, we find this is the most likely place where they got it. So it tells you, breaks it down. Where are they getting it at? We go in, we do that contact tracing, we record that information, and you go through and you break it down. And so that's why when they come back, well, where do we need to focus our efforts at in our community, try to help prevent this? And this is what we base this on. You have a vaccine map, and then if I'm broken down where it's at, you see it. And that's always changing, updating. Oops, sorry, maybe a little sensitive here. And then vaccine characteristics, and this is basically just broken down to age and who's got vaccinated on it. So this is really interesting. You like to look at the numbers, see about it, go through, and you can change from groups to race, ethnicity, gender, and you can go and compare those numbers, see what's going on in our community. Then you can also go look at the weekly city and also breakthrough. And so looking at our recent breakthrough cases. So if I went and looked at by July 29th, so we're looking at, age groups broken down here. And a breakthrough case is somebody that has been vaccinated, that has received their last dose 14 days after, so 14 days or more after their second dose, and they test positive for COVID. And that's considered a breakthrough case. And I'll touch on that in just a little bit in concern of the Delta variant and what we're seeing going on in our community right now with that. But all this information is here. And usually when we gather this information, we know there's, some cases that are reported. We do our best to provide that, but there's usually, if you always look down to the bottom, it's going to have little asterisks and tell you what information we feel is missing, where we gathered it from, and what has contributed to this information. Now, on a weekly basis, this information, a lot of people in the community receive this, but we receive different reports. And so a lot of the government officials, a lot of the health officials, they receive these weekly reports that we send out, usually sometimes daily, sometimes weekly. Right now it's about daily that's coming out. And we go through and look at it on a 2-week basis. Okay, so we look at that. So look, we're here in our great state. We finally got back May 24th, school's ending, summer's looking great. Our community, our casinos are opening back up, and masks go away, and, and kind of we're relaxing everything. And what do we see happen? And then at the same time, we see a variant come into this, a stronger version of the coronavirus, and we start to things go up. And so we have to react to that. But you can go through and see the cases per day, how many cases are happening. And so, yes, a lot of people, well, are they just of all the testing? So when anybody tests, we take their name, their information. We can verify if they've had 2 tests, 3 tests, and we only use that test that shows positive. And you can go through and see that data on where that at. And then you have a 7-day moving average, because some days on the weekends, it's a school syndrome, right? You don't go to the doctor till Monday. So Saturday and Sunday, you're going to be good. You're not going to go to the doctor, but suddenly school starts on Monday. I don't feel so good. So you'll see spikes on Monday, but on Saturday, Sunday, you won't. You'll see on weekends and the holidays too, same thing. And that's why they're always watching. People ask, oh, we had Thanksgiving. And the next day they're asking, did coronavirus go up? Well, we don't see that for about 2 to 3 weeks after a holiday. So we're a little bit slow response, but that's where the data is. So we're always having to react to that. But you can go through and see hospital admissions, how many per day and what's going on. And then we do have a different report, and I believe it is also on the data, but just to show it that, I'll go system report what's going on. But all this data is basically broke down. We look at it 2 weeks, and this is what we provide to our leaders and government officials, as well as any agency or private businesses out there would like this. Now for a situation report, that's for our vaccine in our community. So overall in our community, what we're looking at, this is just Clark County. So we've had total positive cases, about 282,000. And we've had about 4,700 deaths from those cases. So only about 12.2% of our population has tested positive. And we think that, wow, we've had these great numbers. But really, when you look at the number of our population, only 12%. So we have a lot of percentage. We're going to have those ups and downs of those people that are vaccinated or not vaccinated, and why they're pushing so hard to get vaccinated. So we don't have that percentage of the population that has not tested positive, because now it's not a situation, will I get COVID? At some time in your life, you're most likely going to get COVID. So how do we prevent that, or how do we mitigate that so we don't inundate our hospitals? So I'm looking at this in the last 7 days from 6,000, but so right now we're looking at, I was going to show you, so 93.4% have recovered from it. I was going to show it was on here somewhere. Maybe it's on my other one, sorry. Hospitalized, out of those 218,000, we had 18,000 that were hospitalized. And again, as last Friday, elective surgeries like knee surgeries and different things have been canceled at hospitals because we're up around 89% capacity at hospitals again. And that's really the sticking point, is that we don't want our hospitals so inundated that if somebody has a heart attack or a stroke, or the systems that we are in place, we can't treat those individuals. We have to try to control as best as possible for the regular health issues that we deal with within our community. But this information is there, and is it available anytime you would like to look deeper into it? Feel free to email me and I can send you the most latest report, and usually quick on responding on that. So free to do that. But here's our hospitalizations. Yeah, so 83% overall staffed beds. So each hospital is going to be different. Some are going to be like 98%. Sunrise was really close last week, while some are different. This is an aggregate of all our hospitals, all our beds, but some hospitals will be closer to capacity and some will be less. So, and 24% of those are occupied by suspected or confirmed COVID cases. And so we have all this information here that we do follow. And then we also have so we're looking at our vaccination. So here's our campaign. Okay, so estimated number overall of vaccines initiated, it was 16 and above, is 1,177,731. Then we have the estimated overall what's going on at the local VA, at the Air Force Base, as well as less than 16. So we have an estimated number of total vaccines initiated within Clark County is 1,259,000. Now looking at that, so we're going to look at it two different ways. One, 12 and older, and then 16 and older. 12 and older, we are just about to 70%. So this is our number. It's our estimated population of that age group is 1,900,000, right around that. So I'm just rounding up some there, 100 or 2 million, right around there. So we're just about to 70%. So we need 152,888 to get to that 70%. We're hoping that's herd immunity right around there, but we're not sure. For smallpox, it had to be 90. I want to say it was, and if any doctors want to help me, smallpox, I want to say it was like they had to reach 90% of the vaccination, and polio was right around 70. So, it's going to be different. We have to kind of find this for COVID. Where are we going to find that herd immunity, and to be able to manage this so we get less variants as they grow. And then when we're looking at just 16 and older, we're just about, again, a little bit closer to that 70%. So we're getting there. On a whole, I feel that Clark County has done really well. Sometimes we talk about the whole state, and that actually, I believe, hovers more towards around just about between 50 and 60%. But Clark County as a whole, we're actually doing a little bit better. But we have a lot of, we're different from other communities. We have casinos. We have a lot of different challenges that other places don't face. So this is what we're seeing in our community. Overall, just a quick subjective information when looking at this information, and a few other points just to touch on. And some of this information is a little bit more subjective. We know we deal with social media, all right? And so our first time in history, if you go back, who were the storytellers? You had priests, you had shamans, you had kings, you had religions. They controlled the information, and they told that information. And then we had different times of where communication changed, with the printing press to typewriters to telephones, all those things. But for the first time in history, we are now the storytellers, and especially our youth are our storytellers. They drive it. So a lot of times we point our fingers at media and those old storytellers, government, media, but we done a lot of, I think in our society, we haven't realized that we control a lot of that power now. We're the storytellers. And so it's important is that the reason you go and get education is it doesn't only give you information and knowledge, it helps you understand how to process knowledge, how to be able to take something, read it, and be able to question it, to analyze it. And that's what you're doing there for school, right? So help you learn how to think, how to process information. And we need to do that with social media, and we need to be responsible with it. So when we read something, we need to sit back, take a step back, maybe take 2 or 3 days, think about it, research it, read up on it, and really and not take it there. That's what science is, right? It's that knowledge at that time, and we're constantly trying to process that. We need to do that with social media. And we also remember the power that we have being the storyteller for the first time ever in our history, which is amazing, but we need to learn a lot from it. Next is also, we've come to a point also that we've advanced so much, we're falling back a little bit on that. I only want to believe what I can verify physically, what I can see and touch. So we have a harder time sometimes with the science out there. So we tend to question a lot more. And so again, that's just a process of thinking and what we can do and help us in our community and communicate with each other to be able to learn and process and be able to take that time and trust the science that is out there. And science wants you to question it, wants you to expand, but we need to be able to do it in a correct way, right? And be able to share that with each other and do that in a correct process. Now, looking at our community, one reason we're going up, and some of these questions on here is about the Delta variant. And so what I want to tell you is we saw in our Office of Epidemiology and Disease Surveillance was that, they started testing for variants because we heard about the Alpha, which is in Europe. We heard about the Lambda, it's named off the Greek alphabet. And then the Delta came up, which it was primarily, we saw first in Asia, in country of India, we saw that variant growing there. So a lot of times when you get a breakthrough case, they'll take a sample and they'll send it in and it'll come back from the lab and say, genetic material not sufficient. There wasn't enough there. And you see that with multivariants. And most of our epidemiologists are like, it's expensive. Why are they putting this effort in to try to identify it? Because if somebody is vaccinated and it's just not going to show up, your immune system did the job. It took care of it. There's just not enough virus to identify it. And then we started, but we kept on doing it. And then suddenly everyone was coming back positive. We were able to identify it. So the Delta virus, we're in a constant cold war with viruses. They want to figure things out. We're constantly battling them. So when we didn't have a vaccinated population high enough, a variant developed. The strong survived. And the Delta variant, compared to all the other coronaviruses, has, so let's say the regular one, the first coronavirus we started out with had 10 spikes on the outside. That's how it gets in the body, the receptors and stuff. And the Lambda went up to 20. Well, Delta went up to like 200 spikes on the outside. So it's highly, it's highly infectious and it's coming through in those breakthroughs. And so that's where we are going to, we have to, this is the next phase we have to get through, and we want to get to that immunity and that herd. So that's why we're seeing it's more. And that's why when it comes out, remember that when you get a vaccine, it doesn't mean you're not going to get the virus. It means that you have protection against it when you get it. And that was a great explanation from before. And one thing when speaking, we've got very used to when we take medications, a lot of times, if you take aspirin or if they're always asking, if you take penicillin, do you have allergic reaction? We get used to that. We take a medication. If something goes wrong, I stop taking it, right? You instantly stop taking it. Sometimes now that gets kind of transferred onto vaccines. I got the flu virus, and man, I got so sick, I am never taking the flu virus again. But that's actually not an adverse reaction. That's a positive reaction. We forget that, is that you take the virus, you get shot. And if you get the symptoms, that means your body's reacting to it. Your body's doing what it's supposed to. So sometimes we have to suffer a little bit through those symptoms, but we say, hey, my immune system worked. It helped me actually develop immunity. I know it worked. That's actually kind of nice. It wasn't a negative reaction. Now, an adverse reaction with a shock would be an immediate type of allergic reaction, or the blood clotting that was mentioned, and different things. And we're always looking for those. And that is an adverse reaction. And we're always trying to identify those. But you get the symptoms, good thing, so one thing to consider on that. We have seen some disparities within our communities. This is all over. We have especially within that, we've seen it within our Black community and our Hispanic community. and it's access. We have an immigrant population that is, to go and get a vaccine is scary. When, are they going to deal with deportation? Are they going to have those challenges there with that? In our Black community, we have a horrible history of science experiments within the Black community. And so they have they're coming back to trusting medical society again. And we have to be able to build that trust with them and get out into the community. And so we have to find those people that are the storytellers, the good storytellers that go out and help promote that. And so that's part of what we have to do. Now, access-wise, I feel here in Clark County, we have great access. We do everything we can. We will do a strike team for testing as well as for vaccine. But, and we were always ready. And the minute we got the vaccine, we were there. We were always ready, running to go. Our response here in Clark County is better in a lot of places in the nation. When we started out, we were dealing with not having enough vaccine, but we got it now, right? It's at your pharmacy, it's there. We have access. Now it's just helping our friends, our neighbors understand the right information and be able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I'm just like with Dr. Duong, that we love to educate, right? And sometimes we talk a little bit. It's just we get excited about it. It's a little bit of our passion there and stuff and different things we have. But that's what's kind of going on in our community that we see. We're responding well, but we still have a little bit more work to do. And interesting, if you look in the media right now, where it has gone back up, vaccines have started going back up, and it's because people are starting to see like. Those people that never had COVID before are getting it, and loved ones are getting it. And they're like, oh man, I do need to go get this vaccine. And so it's helping us get to that next stage. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. I'm sure there's a lot of questions and for roundtable, whatever and stuff, and be able to help. But thank you. This has been great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know that we're kind of running out of time, so if it's okay, can you all, our panelists, hang out for a few minutes past our 5:30 time? And that would be really great. I think I overshot it or didn't leave enough time. And our participants, if you want to know some of these answers, I hope that you'll stick around. But of course, we're also recording it, so you'll be able to access this later. I think I'm actually going to turn to Dr. Johnson and Dr. Kebede as well to chime in here. There's some really great questions and answers. So Dr. Johnson, I appreciate you answering some of these questions in the chat and providing some really great answers for people to sift through. I mean, I think you all, I would like to take two questions immediately to think about because I hear about it all the time. One is fertility, and I hear this from students and across the board, young people, breastfeeding people, pregnant people, right? Like, at what stage should I get this vaccine? Is it going to curtail my fertility? For men in particular, that was that study that just came out about decreased sperm counts and erectile dysfunction because of contracting COVID-19, not the vaccine, but actually contracting it. So I think that's one question that I think from the panelists we haven't heard from. If you want to chime in with also your take on the vaccines and some of these questions, it would be great to hear about that, as well as, okay, if I get the vaccine, will I be 100% protected? If you can elaborate on that answer, Dr. Johnson, I know you answered it, but this idea of like to reiterate points that were said in this session, I know that this has been answered, but I think it's really worth reiterating what's happening right now with vaccinated folks and the breakthroughs, because I know a lot of people get freaked out about the breakthroughs, but when you go and read about the cases, it's different than what we were experiencing a year ago.
And thank you. I answered a few of the questions in the chat box. I don't know if Dr. Duong though I have sort of the layman terms of nursing sort of education component in regards to the 100% protected question. And basically I put in just to kind of reiterate what I put in the chat box, is that no vaccine is 100% effective. None of them are. And so although rare, vaccinated people can still, of course, contract COVID-19, and we call these breakthrough cases, right? But they're rare. And when this happens, the symptoms are usually non-existent or extremely mild. And so, but I don't know if Dr. Duong wants to put the biology MD spin on that, if there's something more that he wants to kind of add to that.
And Dr. Kebede, feel free to jump in here too,
Dr.
because
Kebede.
I know you haven't had a chance to get a word in yet.
I'm going to turn over to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Kebede here. I know that he would probably give you another answer, but again, I agree with Dr. Johnson. Again, nothing is 100%, but I think the key point to share with the audience member is that it does provide protection. And if you do become infected with the COVID, that the symptom will be much milder. All right. So Dr. Kebede, would you please join in and share with us your thoughts on this?
Yes, I was actually muted. So what I was saying is, well, you've done a good presentation of the science. That's very good. But one thing we have to know is, and I have done a great deal of community outreach, and all those questions come up, and I have been challenged by those questions. We've done radio outreach, and we have actually persuaded a great deal of people to go get vaccinated. And I'm hoping that our students would be catalysts in spreading the news that vaccination helps. And one of the things I've heard that really impressed me was, if we had this social media situation that we're in, and unfortunately, this is a pandemic, this is a world problem, it's a global problem that I also try to contribute into. We have unfortunately politicized this and caused a major problem. That is the major problem, and we have to step out of this and see that we have to solve this collectively. We can't solve it individually. Mask issue is politicized, and congregating together is politicized, and all of those things. So some basic things that I have shared with the community is, the virus enters into your body, stimulates your immune system, just like Dr. Duong was explaining, and you begin to build antibodies. Antibodies are the fighters. So you prepare yourself to fight off the pathogen. If we do not understand this, then we're not understanding what vaccination is. So that's the first thing we have to grasp. And no vaccine completely protects us. And if you can imagine, about a year ago, we used to get vaccinated every year. We had a vaccination for flu shot. You couldn't go to hospital and practice if you didn't get flu shots. When did vaccination become such a major, issue in our community? So the misinformation and the misconceptions that are associated with it are sadly spreading, and the spreaders are the people who don't really grasp the science. So coming back, one of those questions that I hear is from the males: was it going to make me impotent, or is it going to have some effect on my sexual life? What the science has proved is, through PCR examination of body fluids and organs, the virus was not actually traced in those organs, in the testes or reproductive organs of males or their fluids, right? If I'm vaccinated, would I still get the virus? Yes, you will, and that's why you have to wear masks, right? We wear masks to protect people, right? It's not only to protect ourselves, it is to protect other people from having that, from having our respiratory droplets. Even in vaccinated people, the virus has been isolated in their nostrils. So if you're sneezing and coughing on someone, you can still spread that. So you could be a vaccinated person who's unconsciously spreading the virus. So these are some of the things, some delicate things that we have, to explain to people. Another misconception is, why do we have this policy changing all the time with the vaccines? This is what we have to know about COVID. And one of the funniest things I've heard was COVID-19. What were the scientists doing when it was 16 or 17 or 18? But this is really ridiculous, because it is associated, it was, actually described in 2019, and that's why it has the 19. We were not asleep when it was happening the prior years when it showed up. So what we have to know is, this is a virus we don't know a whole lot of stuff about. Even all the professionals doing the research are discovering things periodically. We don't know everything. Now we have the Delta variant. We have the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta, and there's a Greek, speaker. I know all of this, where all this comes from. But the Delta is the most communicable one. It came from India, and it has different characteristics. So therefore, we have to change our policy. That's why we had to reinstate the wearing of masks, and we're going to require that from our students as well. When I teach in the labs, I want my students to wear PPE and have face shields and all sorts of things to protect the people around them and also to protect themselves. So we do this collectively. Another misconception is, well, if everybody else is getting the vaccines, I can have herd immunity. And I think Dr. Kingsley addressed that. For measles, it was about 95%. If 95% get vaccinated and we have about 5% people for whatever reason don't get vaccinated, we can have herd immunity. So that could be covered. For polio, it was slightly lower, 70 to 80%. We don't know how much it is going to be for COVID. We haven't yet forcefully attacked this virus and collectively worked to eliminate it. So we can't rely on herd immunity. So there are several misconceptions. We all reach out, and what I would ask if a part of our audience are our students, I would like them to go out and become the storytellers, like Dr. Kingsley was saying. Go out there, and I'm sure the young people use social media more frequently than any of us do. Please tell people that this is not going to do any kind of unusual harm than any other vaccination. If it has some problem, well, it is always very closely monitored by the CDC and all the scientists involved in here, and they will stop the dispensation of the vaccine. If it is not found to be harmful, then they're going to allow the continuity of the vaccinations, and unless we all get vaccinated, we are not going to resolve this problem. This is a global problem. It's a pandemic. Everyone has to do their effort, and also as a person who does medical missions and wondering whether I could travel now or not, or take my students someplace or not, I wonder how much of those vaccinations are reaching those remote areas, economically, disadvantaged communities. It is meaningless if we get vaccinated in one part of the hemisphere and the other part of the hemisphere is not vaccinated. This is a collective problem, and I tell people to imagine for a moment, if we had social media about 50 years ago, we would still be limping and paralyzed with polio, right? We wouldn't be vaccinated. Polio is almost eliminated now. Smallpox is eliminated almost, right? With the exception of small pockets where there is, conflict areas. And so vaccinations saved us from a lot of things. This is a science that has been there. The documented one started like Dr. Duong stated in his presentation with Dr. Jenner's initial, vacca coming from cows and all those things. But the ancient physicians also, the Chinese and the Egyptian and all those types of ancient physicians also had the concept of inoculation. So if they inoculated someone, they know they are protected. So if they could understand this thousands of years ago, we should be able to understand it now and open ourselves to this possibility. Another thing in the community that I heard about is in the religious community, especially the 666 thing and the chip and all of that kind of stuff. Well, actually, if you actually look at the needle, and I hope somebody and the social media shows the actual needle, how you could possibly inject a microchip or a 666 or whatever into somebody's body, and that betrays any type of logic. The second concern is the mRNA. People with limited knowledge of DNA and RNA understand that this would alter their own RNA. It's not the hostess RNA, that it has nothing to do with the hostess RNA. I mean, it has something to do with their immune system, but the RNA is above the virus's RNA, which would help us identify the virus as it gets into our body, and then we prepare the immune system to combat it. So I think we have a lot of explanation to do, and I thank you for this opportunity, and I appreciate my colleagues, Dr. Duong and Dr. Kingsley, and I'm sure Dr. Johnson will also have some valuable insight on the matter.
I appreciate it. I think to kind of jump in here, I feel like we're going to move towards a game show style of our questions, maybe like a lightning round. Maybe one of you could take each one. And I'm going to go in order because I think they're really worthwhile, at least to even touch on where people can get resources, if that makes sense, because we can't solve and answer all the questions. But I'm just going to kind of go in order, if that's okay, here in the chat. And of course, you can feel free to just unmute your mic and jump in on the one that you want to take, and we'll just kind of move to the next one once it's answered. So the first one, the vaccine is said to improve your immune system. Why is that? Why is it that after I get vaccinated, or I got vaccinated with the COVID vaccine, my immune system has worsened and I'm now getting sick weekly along with my family members who also got vaccinated? Yeah, who wants to take that?
So
Dr. Johnson, I
so
think.
our immune system is an amazing thing. It potentially has the ability to respond to any bacteria, any virus. As I said, we're in a cold war, right? With viruses, they're constantly trying to figure out how to get our immune system. Our immune system basically is a cell that gobbles up anything, chops it up, gives it to the rest of the body. Our body can recognize it, and it potentially can do that. That is a very subjective question when somebody says, they're saying, this is what happened to me, and now I'm getting sicker. We don't know all the information on that, right? When you sit down and start to consider all the stuff, did their diet change? Did the environment change? Did they move a house? Are they exposed to something else? And also, we're looking at this as, for a good while, we were isolated, so in our schools, regularly, there's called an RSV. It's a upper respiratory infection. It usually affects babies, usually up to 3 years old. And we didn't have and usually it's during the winter months. It's almost like on track, from November to February, we have RSV and little babies are in the hospital and they're on ventilators sometimes. And then suddenly we didn't have it. And then we took our masks off, and summer out of nowhere, RSV came, right? And suddenly we have RSV babies in the NICU right now. And Sunrise is dealing with it a lot. And so we saw the effectiveness of isolating and wearing a mask also prevented a flu season and RSV. And then suddenly we took them off and they're back. So that's also subjective. So there's a lot of things going on. And so again, that's somebody that is, you have to sit back, take it. Now they might be affected. We can also not say they're not, we're going to say that how their body responded to it. And that also brings the question of long haulers. We don't see it with the vaccine. But one big thing plug in is you do not want to become a long hauler. About 10% of COVID cases become long haulers. And it finally just received a designation code and also a recommendation from the CDC to doctors to actually consider this. And about 1 out of 8 long haulers proceed towards death. But people that have long haulers, the ones I know, the fatigue, they hate. It is in the fatigue and brain fog is horrible. And then the loss of taste. There's some people going on a year now that have not tasted food. They just eat routine. They say it's actually helped them lose weight because they have no enjoyment in eating, but that's part of our life, right? We love to enjoy our food. You do not want to have that long haul symptom. So one thing we're seeing with the vaccine is that when you do get it, if you do get COVID, you most likely we're not seeing people progress to long haulers, but we can't say it happened, right? We can't say 100% no, that didn't happen. We just need to be able to look at a broader sense, what's going on in that person's life and in their health system.
Excellent. Yeah. I'm going to skip what makes the Delta variant more contagious because I think that was relatively answered. And you can, of course, look that up and plan accordingly. Per your earlier graph about our city and the county, Dr. Kingsley, if food establishments are a hotspot, should they be social distancing there or reversing or adding some course of action at food places?
Yeah, you know what? We're not at the same place where we were before when we started this, right? If you get COVID, we know how to treat it better now, and we're developing better systems. Survival rates going up with it, and so we know how to treat it better. So, but we always have to be in mind, okay, we're still in a problem. What mitigation can I use? We also have to think about our economy, right? These are important things. We, as a public health and doctor, we would love just to go at it and lock everyone in their house, until this is done. But we understand there's also economists, there's our government, and there's all this other side stuff. So any restaurant needs to, okay, what can I do to be mitigation conscious? What can I do to help my community? As I said, this has to be a collective effort. So restaurants just say, okay, so what's happening inside here? What can I do to help prevent this? We're going to do masks, but okay, if I take one table out, at least I do that. I want to stay open and be able to continue to serve my community. And as a community, we could say, you know what, I'm still going to support my restaurants. I'm going to do Grubhub. I'm going to do this delivery food service. I'm going to do this. We can continue to do that. We have to do it collectively. We see that hotspot. And as a restaurant, we want them to be open, but we also want them to be mitigation conscientious.
Awesome. Okay. And per that data that you presented before, is there any data on contagion trends for our younger kids under 12?
Yes. So, and I could pull it up, but I don't want to take the time. I have to go search through my email. We also do a breakdown, and we send it to all the private, public, and charter schools, and we send them on a weekly basis. It comes out on Monday, and we track 0 to 5, 5 to 12, and 12 to 17. We've seen a big spike in 5 to 12. Our summer camps here in town, before last year, schools were amazing situations, and that's one thing we've always advocated. We want kids back in school. We want them in there. We want them education. We saw a lot of challenges with social and effects on them from them not being in school. And we found their self environment, and we protected our kids so well. But with this Delta variant, and we relaxed some, before we would see one case in a classroom, and that would be it. And then just during this summer, we saw one case. And then we saw 3, 4, we saw an outbreak. We barely had very few outbreaks in any of our schools, from public, private, or charter, this past year. And then just in summer, when we pulled back on our mask and everything else, we saw outbreaks in schools. So it's something to consider, that this is highly more contagious, and we have to be aware of that. 5 to 12 went up. All of them have gone up, but 5 to 12 was the highest impacted.
Okay, awesome. All right. If I'm fully vaccinated, would I be okay going to actual school? And you kind of just touched on this, but anybody can take it.
Yes, definitely. That's just a quick answer. Yes, you're going to be vaccinated. You get to go. You get some benefits from it. It's just like you're getting vaccinated for your other stuff. You have your 7, 11, you have certain age groups, you're going to get it. Helps you stay strong. And then when you go to college, you got to get meningitis and different ones. But yes, definitely help you be back to school. Be safe.
This is one this was not on my radar. Why do people believe that after getting the COVID vaccine, they are magnetized? That's like Magneto or something. That's kind of cool. But what's the story with that?
I think Dr. Duong might want to touch on, but it's probably that belief, aluminum. That's one of my challenge words. But
I
heavy
don't,
metals, right? So
I mean, aluminum is a good conductor, but I don't think it's a good attractant to be magnetized. I feel like, again, it may be a typo in what they read. It may have misread what they may have read or written, or it's one of those, conspiracy theory, like they put a magnetizer that they can detect you, whatever. I don't know. I don't have a scientific answer to that question. I really don't know. Why would you magnetize? Again, as I say, the amount of aluminum that you get from a vaccine is nowhere near what you would eat from a pear. So this is nowhere near going to cause you to attract to a magnet. But like I said, all kidding aside, I don't know if that is even an issue. So that may be a typo. That might be something that was just said without even thinking about, oh, that could be something that people can believe. So I don't know the answer.
It might also be social media. It's easy to show like somebody does a little joke and they do this and it looks like they're magnetized or something. And anybody that sees that, at least 3% will believe it, and they will emphatically believe it just by
Well, I mean, just like last year.
It's a psychological thing. That one, I always go back to a study that they showed Bugs Bunny at the entrance of, they imposed Bugs Bunny at the entrance of Disneyland. And they showed it to so many people, and there are like 5 or 10 of them that were just like, no, I saw Bug Bunny at Disneyland. It's Warner Brothers. It's not, but because they saw the image, they believed it. And so I believe it's perhaps a little bit social media too. It's easy to replicate, or fake too. So.
Yeah.
I know some great things are being answered in the chat, so keep an eye on it, or in the Q&A. I'm going to pull some questions from the chat that have been coming in, actually, and to kind of come back to some of the fertility questions or menstrual cycle questions. Is it true that the vaccine changes your menstrual cycle and can sometimes make your breasts bigger?
I do not have an answer to that question. I do not know. What I do know is the American College of OBGYN have agreed that the vaccine is safe for pregnant women. and it doesn't affect the breastfeeding in that respect. That's all I know from that scientific side. As far as the potential consequences from the vaccine, as far as enlarged breast tissues and let's say the process where you skip your cycle or have irregular cycle, I don't know what the data is out there in terms of that at this point. I don't have the answer to that question.
Okay, with the rise in cases for children that are unable to be vaccinated, are there any concerns or recommendations for children who have pre-existing conditions?
Yes, there is, so those considerations. So go to your healthcare provider, see where they're at. They can provide a note. It needs to be, a healthcare provider that's not a family member or some chiropractic back in North Dakota. You get a lot of those, and stuff. So go to your healthcare provider. They can provide a note in that, and they'll be able to, they know your medical history. They can evaluate and they can say at this time, yes or no. And schools, for our recommendation, we provide that. So when students that can't wear masks or can't get the vaccine or something, we want them in school. So the rest of school, like explained before, they're being a collective source. We're going to do our part. So those people in our community that are challenged, we can help them, right? So those are those 5% that can't go get the vaccine, and we'll get herd immunity so we can protect you. We got to do this collectively.
Okay, here's a great question that plugs back to kind of the social history or the history of vaccines. What is your opinion if they make the vaccine obligated or obligatory? Do you believe that is okay? Should we have a voice to decide whether we want to get it or not?
That is crossing into the medical ethic discussion in this case, because that there are a few governing concepts to ethics, right? One is autonomy, the right of the patient to make an informed consent decision based on facts and not fallacies or hearsay. The other is to promote good, which is what we hope to do. The other one is to do no harm, which is non-malfeasance. The other one is also justice and fairness. So the question here is that I don't know. I think that as an individual, you want to be educated on the science behind it and some of the aspect behind it and make an informed decision on this. As far as making it obligated, what are your thoughts, gentlemen? From a nursing standpoint, from an epidemiologist standpoint, and from a surgeon standpoint, or what are your thoughts on this? Because I feel that as an individual, it comes down to individual rights per se, but we have the obligation to protect the mass also. So where do we sit on this?
Well, I will defer to Dr. Johnson on this, but I have a perspective on this, so
yeah,
I'll speak afterwards.
I mean, I don't really, I like Dr. Duong said, it's a medical ethics question. And I mean, I think we could all sit here all day and debate our perspectives on whether it's right or whether it's wrong. And the reality is it's not happening yet to the general public. I mean, we know that the federal government is mandating certain requirements for federal employees. If they choose not to get the vaccine, they have to go through testing and whatnot. And so, yeah, I don't know what to say necessarily about that question. It's a challenging question.
I hear you,
and
Michael.
It's based on your own sort of perspective and beliefs, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in support of freedom of choice, but choice comes with responsibility.
And consequences too.
When we say send our children to school, they say if your child is not vaccinated with MMR, for example, or whatever the vaccination is, they're not going to participate in school sports or something, right? So there could be some stipulations there that state, if you're not vaccinated, if you choose to not be vaccinated, then there are certain responsibilities that you have to consider. Another thing is, if someone decides, it's a free country, so I respect the freedom, but if they decide to not get vaccinated and they are overloading the healthcare industry with the expenses of those people who get infected and are in ICUs, we're all paying for them. So I think someone should realize if I choose to not be vaccinated, if I choose to be sick, my insurance has to sort of require something more from me than the average person. And that way we respect the freedom, but we also have some responsibility associated with it.
I think, on it, again, it's a responsibility. If you choose not to get vaccinated, you have to be honest and you have to be responsible to say that I have to isolate myself now. I have to take the steps to protect other people. I have to do this collectively because that's my choice. I'm not going to get vaccinated, but that comes with responsibilities and you have to be truthful with it. And I also think, when we think of government, we need to think of, people say a lot, the voice of the people. The voice of the people is our Constitution, our state constitution, our Nevada revised statutes. In Nevada revised statutes, has the people said, given the government authority to step in and control somebody isolation? That is in our NRS. We can say, you know what, if I have to send a policeman outside your door, we've never done this and I don't think we will. We don't want to go there, but it's the voice of the people have said that in the law. It's in NRS coding, allows us to be able to do that. Nobody wants to get there, but we have passed certain health laws to say when it gets too bad, we need to step in, so I don't think we're there yet. I hope we don't get there and hope people are responsible and honest.
I think that Dr. Kingsley, I believe I read this morning, at least on the news, that due to the increased rise in the COVID cases from the Delta variant, that we are actually seeing an increase, a rise in vaccination. Can you speak to that really quick? Because I think the message is getting across now that this variant is a little bit more contagious, is it more virulent? So let me just get the vaccine and just not deal with it.
I want to say in our community, because we've been doing pretty good, but we've gone back up in numbers. I want to say in 5 to 10%. In Missouri, it was in the immediate, they went up 150% in vaccinations. They were also the lowest. They were only hovering around 30%. And then they got hit the hardest and they went up 150% in vaccinations. They shot up. So this Delta variant is actually helping us motivate because again, it's somebody suddenly is like before they didn't know anybody that got COVID. And suddenly loved ones are now getting and younger children are getting, they're like, wow, this is happening. I need to go do my part. So we never want that to happen, but I guess that's a byproduct of our numbers going back up. So it is, yeah. And we've seen it here in the Valley. Not as super strong as other states, but we are seeing it here a little bit, yes.
Right. Okay.
Okay, just a few more questions. Thank you. And then we're gonna just end it. I'm sorry to just keep you here. I should have known. But I'm actually gonna ask a couple going rogue from the Q&A because I think there are a couple of things that I keep hearing over and over again between our vaccine options, and I will drop a link in the chat of where you can book your vaccination should you be interested in it. But there is the mRNA Pfizer, mRNA Moderna, Johnson & Johnson works a little bit more traditionally, I believe, like AstraZeneca. Is there a clear science or winner on which one of these would be most effective or preferable for getting?
The health district answers is the one you get. That's going to be effective for you. The science will be there. There's always, I pull up this, science is always evolving. Science isn't the truth. It's the search for truth. And when it changes, it didn't lie to you before, it just learned something new. And so that's where we are. We could possibly get a better vaccine as we go along. What we have and the one you get is the best one for you to get. They all offer different types of protections. That's good for you.
Okay, yeah, great. Do we know about when the FDA, like ballparking FDA, might have permanent approval? Because I know that that's also affecting potential COVID mandates, or I'm sorry, COVID vaccine mandates in certain institutions.
Mine's based off media, but is looking at possibly December. Children possibly for below 12 early winter, so possibly January, February, we could see a vaccine for below 12, but the studies need to continue on. We need to be able to evaluate if it's safe and effective. But I believe the Moderna is going to beat them into the gate, but it's looking like December and November. It's the last I've heard.
That's excellent. That was actually one of our questions about when it might be available for children under 12. And with the Delta variant, are we seeing children become sicker than they had been before?
No, we're seeing more infection. Children, especially the younger they get, the less severe it is. But we're seeing more cases in children. So.
Well, and I know that you've all talked about storytellers, and I think this will be my final question before I defer to you all for any last kind of words of wisdom here. But I think it's an important one that's left here in the Q&A, which is that if you're confronting people who are believing in conspiracy theories, right, whether they think it's a government overstep or something like that, like how do you counteract that? What is going to change people's minds? I know that you guys in some ways have touched on this, but I think it would be really beneficial to hear again a little bit about like, what do we think might make the difference for those who are just totally against it, skeptical, listening to the conspiracy theories, and letting celebrities guide their medical choices?
If I may just jump in there real quick, Layla, it's interesting because we hear the term anti-vaxxer, all right? And that's really just an umbrella term for people that are against receiving vaccine. But that's not always the case. You have folks that may not be very, let's say, really, let's go get the vaccine, let's go get the vaccine. It's like, let me think about this, let me do some research. I think for me, it's just a robust dialogue, like just an open, honest dialogue. Hey, listen, here are what the data have shown. This is the history of the vaccine, whether it date back to the Chinese using a smallpox powder that they actually blow into somebody's nose as a way to inoculate them, right? To, Edward Jenner's and all of these vaccines. And we're going to just present the data to them on what's out there scientifically. And I think it's a mindset that you're changing, Layla. And so when you're changing the mindset of somebody, it's going to require, if not time and effort, but also just some hard information. And Dr. Kingsley made a comment that unless it's something that we can actually touch and feel, that they can actually see with their own naked eyes, it's almost hard to change that mindset. Because sometimes, it's like the cup half empty and half full. All right. Are you a pessimist or an optimist? So if you are the pessimist, just that one side effect is like, I knew it, the vaccine's bad for you. And so it's a mindset that you have to change. And I'm not sure where to start, except just an open dialogue and just sharing with folks the data, the numbers, you know. And so that would probably be one of the things that I would think would help, like something like this, an open forum that we can talk and ask questions, answer them as best as we can. So that would be one of my thoughts as far as like an open dialogue, a robust dialogue with the folks that are believing that. Like of course the UFO, Area 51, all that good stuff. It's just a mindset, and it's very hard to change that mindset. Now, culturally, that may change over time in terms of how we view healthcare and how we view healthcare access in that respect. But I think overall, if they are diehard anti-vaxxer or conspiracy theorists, it's a challenge for us to try to change that mindset.
One tool I could possibly give for you is that on social media, it's never nice to be called out on anything or agreed or this or that. So if you have your opinion, whatever you type, there's not going to change them. But if you're interested in that person, always maintain a relationship. But you can instantly say, all you have to say on there is, I don't agree with this, but if you'd like to hear more, please DM me. Please send me a message. Please call me. Or if you don't want to do that, then just send them a DM or text, or if you're an extrovert, call them. They might answer, but just call them directly and have a personal, because nobody wants to be called out and just say, hey, I saw this comment. Can I talk to you about it? And then have that broad on it. But on social media, it just becomes an easy way to call somebody out. So that's a simple tool. Just go ahead and say, like, if you'd like to know, I don't agree with this. If you'd like some more information, please feel free to contact me. And there you go.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Just that sort of, very simple, very non-confrontational approach. Hey, here's my story. Let me share with you my story. And as opposed to, hey, listen, you're wrong because the CDC said this. And that's just sort of that just caused more trouble than anything.
Okay, so any final statements, closing statements? I know, Dr. Johnson, that you have an exciting, kind of announcement to make, or kind of looking ahead to what's coming.
Yes, Dr. Johnson, please share with us your initiative.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer a bunch of questions in the chat. So hopefully some of those were helpful as well. And you're able to, I assume Leela's going to share all of our contact information with the attendees. And just like the rest of the panel, feel free to reach out if you have any questions about anything. I'm happy to have a conversation with you about this stuff. But one of my roles today was to come on and just talk about vaccine accessibility. And Dr. Kingsley did share the Southern Nevada Health District. You can go and sign up, as well as if you go to immunizenevada.org, they have a great tool. You can type in your zip code, especially for those folks who have transportation issues, or transportation restrictions, rather, I should say. You can go to Immunize Nevada, type in your zip code, and you can find a place, and I'll put that link in the chat box as well, to find a place to go get vaccinated. But as well as that, I just wanted to share that over the last 8 months, the School of Nursing, specifically in Nevada State, we have partnered with UNLV, CSN, as well as we partnered with Southern Nevada Health District and did strike teams with them, where we led vaccine clinics throughout the city. And our students in the School of Nursing have, we helped safely vaccinate thousands and thousands of people over the past 8 months. And so what we want to do at Nevada State College is we want to offer this to our Nevada State family and the surrounding community. And so I'm going to put a link in the box, in the chat box, or an interest form. If you're interested in getting the vaccine at Nevada State College, fill out the interest form, and we will bring information at a later date of when this clinic is planned. And also feel free to share this interest form on social media, as well as to your family and friends. And we don't yet know when this is going to be, but it will be within the next few months. And we will, again, partner with Southern Nevada Health District. We will get the Moderna vaccine from them, and we will administer doses 1 and 2. And our School of Nursing will run the clinic. And so look out for that link in the chat box.
Plug away, plug away.
And I should say, just like, because it comes from Southern Nevada Health District, the vaccine would be free of charge.
Plug away.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any last comments? I don't want to cut any of our panelists off, but I so appreciate you spending so much extra time with us. This is truly a public service. And I appreciate you all being here, because I know that we're all equally passionate about vaccines, have received the vaccine, can attest to it and vouch for it. So students, if that helps you to kind of consider what are your choices, and if you want to approach any one of us to talk about our vaccine experience, we are happy to do so. And I know that professors on campus at Nevada State are also happy to do so. They are really excited about the science behind it and anxious about it. And I'll be also making sure, Nepantla folks, that our page for this is updated with all these really great links and chats and that we can use to contact in the future, particularly emails. But thank you so much, panelists. I really appreciate you being here. If there's anything that you want to say before we go, this would be the time.
Thank you. Continue great education. Continue to be the leaders that we need. Grow, get smarter, help our community work together. Thanks for this time. And again, I'm open. Send me an email. I'm usually pretty good about, I'm great about responding usually. So I always love to take the time. So feel free to reach out to me for anything. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you, Leila, for putting this together and spreading the words. We can only solve this by doing it together. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. We have our emails and you can reach us. And of course, if you need to email me for any reason, I'm putting this into the chat. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.